back to moments like that where you don't actually realize because you've computed it in a certain way that is like
Mm,
non-threatening, and then you tell the story
mm.
to somebody else, and as the words come out of your mouth, you're realizing that I just dodged a
Like, oh,
pedophile.
that probably wasn't great. 80s and 90s. I still remember smoking on planes. I was 4 years old. And so, actually, I'll tell this story properly. I was 4 years old, and my parents, my sister would have been 8, and my brother would have been, no, sorry, my brother would have been 8, and my sister would have been 12. And we went to Fiji, and we're on a plane to Fiji. I think it was Fiji Airlines. And they had smoking in the back. So my parents would go out the back of the plane and have a dart and then come back to the seats and everything. And I think even by that stage, like, that was annoying because you used to be able to smoke in your seat, and now
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
a smoking section type of thing.
yeah.
And I was 4, and I made friends with a large man on the plane who was just covered in tattoos and, like, the full 9-yard beard and everything like that. And I made friends with him. And there's this lovely, gorgeous picture of me as a little 4-year-old sitting on his lap because he was biting
Ew,
a
no!
tooth up the butt smoking. I'm just like, what a
Who took that
beautiful.
photo?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But I got the photo was in our house, like, up. We used to have this big photo wall.
Oh, stop it! It was on a mantle.
Yeah,
Who's this
years
guy?
and years and
Some
years.
rando on a plane
Rando. Yeah.
who decided that being friends with a 4-year-old was a great idea.
Yep.
Oh, fucking red
The
flags
80s
through
and
the
90s were wild. They were a different time. Yeah, no. So I bet, like, I remember that. I remember when they brought in the non-smoking inside.
Mm-hmm.
We came to Hong Kong after non-smoking inside. So I would have been about 13 or 14, maybe a bit older. And my mum knew I was smoking at the time, so no, I would have been a little bit older. And she obviously didn't want me to smoke, but we were on holiday, and she she gave up and didn't give a fuck. And so, yeah, Mum and I were relishing in the fact that we were walking around Hong Kong in the malls. You could smoke,
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
all the restaurants, and yeah, the whole
yeah,
nine yards.
yeah, yeah. No,
Those were
Hong
the
Kong. Hong Kong took a
days.
while to catch on. China took even
Mm.
longer. Yeah,
Yeah, because the Chinese, I think, are much heavier smokers than I think most
yeah, yeah.
countries at
They're
the
as bad
time.
as the French, really.
But also, yeah, when it comes to smoking. But also, there was a big touristy thing that they loved, the idea that tourists would come to um, their establishments or their countries to just, let loose.
It was smoking.
So there was a bit of that as well, I think,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
there.
it's
But
possible.
yeah, wild times. I've got
Oh,
lots of stories from the 80s and 90s that,
I mean, dodgy shit. You know, like it's when you think back to moments like that where you don't actually realize because you've computed it in a certain way that is like
mm,
non-threatening, and then you tell the story
mm.
to somebody else, and as the words come out of your mouth, you're realizing that I just dodged a
Like, oh,
pedophile.
that probably wasn't great. Do you know what? Growing up, I don't remember feeling. Yeah, because it was so. I don't know. I think my parents are very nonchalant when it comes down to it all. I think I am too in a lot of ways. Like, I've got a weird, dual brain where I'm very nonchalant and then I'm very, very hyper anxiety. So it's kind of like there's certain aspects of life where Connor will be like, you should really care more about this. And then there's other ones where he's like, calm the fuck down. So
Yeah.
I think I've got that lovely duality going on in my brain that's constantly fighting me.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, we used to have parties at my dad's house. Like, so when my parents divorced, I was probably 13, I think. And we used to have parties at dad's house that was not ridiculously out of control, but like, I was 13, 14, and I would be, no one would be going to bed until daylight the next day. And that included me. Like, everyone was just partying and no one would kind of know or understand what was going on. And then occasionally you'd open up a curtain, you're like, oh shit, it's morning. And I was just hanging around for half that, because I'm the youngest as well. So, and I'm quite the youngest, like 4 years from my brother. So it was kind of normal. I grew up very quickly, but then I think to some degree it was a good thing for me anyway, as my personality, is I did a lot of stupid shit very early on. So then I got into my 20s and I was kind of like, I'm a bit over it.
You're over it at that point. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think we were quite similar in that sense. I was very lucky that neither of my parents were huge on partying. My dad was a huge weed smoker, but he didn't like alcohol, which I feel like if he did like alcohol, I would have had a very different childhood.
That's true. That is very true. Well, say all my family full-blown alcoholics, so. But we talk, like Connor and I talk about this in terms of, you know, that generation, having a drink after work is like having a glass of water a day. It's just so normal and normal for them. Whereas now, drink has to be on a special occasion most of the time for me. I do equate drinking, like when I first got to Hong Kong, God, we were drunk all the fucking time.
Well, Hong Kong's easy though. I mean, there's an entire culture that surrounds it. Yeah, you're almost like a bit weird if you don't partake. You know,
we almost can't not, in a sense of socialization, because you're moving to a country where you don't know anyone, and so you almost need it unless you're planning on joining some groups or something like that. Which was not.
Those are a bit dodgy.
What about, and do we ever want this to be the case? But I do think to myself, you know, my kids are never going to know me at this age. They're toddlers. They're narcissistic. They have no, you know, wherewithal of who I am as a person or what I'm about. They just know me as mum. And I think to myself, even if this never goes anywhere other than the 11 subscribers we have right now, I enjoy that. There's like a little moment in time where I'm a human, I'm a female, I'm you know, a business owner and toddler mom, and all aspects of me tend to be thrown out there for the world to see. And I kind of like that idea that they might one day be able to look back and just be like, Mum was super fucking weird.
Yeah.
What was wrong with her?
And she raised
Why is she crying on camera?
Look, has she no shame?
And look how she's talking about us as toddlers. What a bitch.
Yeah. Well, we got to go back and be like, did she say any rude things about them? I'm pretty sure you've thrown Evie's a little shit around.
Oh, yeah. Constantly. And look, what I want them to know, and I'm talking to my future children, future adult children.
Children in the future,
yeah. You have been dicks. You were major dicks. So it's out there. You weren't perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. She was playing by herself in the toy room, and I was in her room organizing her clothes. And she's talking to these two little characters, and I can hear from the outside. So she was, you know, playing imaginary play, and she goes, "Stop being a dick." Kept going, and I was just like, "Do you know what? She's got a lot of spunk, that kid."
I take it as a compliment when people say that my kid quite a character, and I'm like, at least he's not fucking boring. You know what?
Definitely not boring. Definitely not boring.
No.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Like, imagine if you had a kid with no fucking personality. That would be tough.
I know.
I assume that's So no, I do get a little bit, and this sounds so bad, but I get a little bit of pride that she's the child that everyone knows. Now, for good or bad, she's just so out there, her own. And look, she says some funny shit, and she teeters between aggressive and then just like the most empathetic, kindest, you know. The other day, one of the kids, I think, hurt himself, and she walks in, "You okay, mate? Are you okay? Oh, mate, are you all right, buddy?" And then she kissed him on the head.
Oh, that's
Nice.
stinking cute.
She may have also been the one to hurt him. We don't know. But it teeters between the two. It's quite nice.
Yeah.
So
there was this one thing that always stuck with me ever since I heard it. But it's from Jordan Peterson, and he said that your only job as a parent, you hate him. Your only job as a parent is to make sure that your kids are likable by the age of 5.
Oof,
That's literally your only job. If people like to be around your kids, they're going to be fine because they're going to be surrounded and people are going to want to take care of them and make sure that they're in the right path. And I was like, that's actually true, because if nobody likes you and you're just completely isolated, you get no social conduct, education whatsoever. It's a lot. It's like having a.
No, I agree with that.
Being likable is so very important. Actually,
I put this to you though: is being likable equally as important as your own self-worth when you will aim at being likable at any cost? Because I
don't mean to that extent. Like, I truly think that there's so many different things that can make you likable. Like how Evie is, she can be a bit mean, but she's also very empathetic. But she's also freaking hilarious. There's countless friends that I've had that were like maybe not the best people, but because they had like amazing sense of humor, they kept having friends around. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be likable as in like you're placid and people,
at
like
all
you just want to be, like you're not just people pleasing. I'm just saying, like, you have like some character traits that make it that people want to be around you. So if it's humor, if it's empathy, if it's a dark sense of humor, like whatever it may be, you just have to make sure that they have something about them that people are going to want to stick around. And I think that's a good
no, you make a good point. It's sad that I immediately go to that as likable, which is self-sacrificial in that sense.
Says a lot about you.
Doesn't it? Because I would argue that I was told always that I've got to be pleasing other people to make them like me. That was a huge message I got growing up, which was, oh, you can't do that because then people won't like you. And, and to be fair, I've heard a few times me and Connor have said things like, oh, if you do that, nobody will want to play with you and stuff. It's terrible.
Yeah, but there's sometimes in some instances it's true. Like, I've just hit you over the head with a baseball bat. People won't want to play with you if you do that. That's a valid point. I think there's a limit to everything.
Definitely a valid point. I wonder if I can approach it, because you and I have talked about this before, is that when you grow up and you have adversity, it grows character. And so in that same, can you get that character if you don't have the adversity to get over, type of thing? So you become funny because, you want people, like maybe your parents were depressed and you wanted to make them laugh, and all these kinds of character building situations always, a lot of the time, come from trauma of some description as growing up. And it's almost that conversation of, without the trauma, now don't get me wrong, all kids have trauma of different types, I understand that, but my kids, I hope, are not going to deal with all the stuff that I dealt with as I was growing up. And so I wonder where the character comes from and all that kind of stuff. So you and I have talked about that.
I think your kids both been through a bit of trauma. I feel like if adoption alone and changing
that will be built in.
Yeah, that's. I think they've got a good amount there already to start with.
No, but more so, not my kids necessarily, but more so that idea that without trauma, do you end up being a bland person and you don't have the characteristics?
Yeah, and that's actually a conversation that I have with Zach, like, fairly frequently, because he's had different kind of trauma and for like, I think trauma is very subjective. To each person. Like, somebody's like worst day could be like a regular Thursday for somebody else who's lived a lot of trauma. So it's very subjective, and I think that your body will respond, maybe not to that extent, but like quite close, based on what your maximum trauma has been. So if mine is up here and yours is down here, your body is still going to have the same cortisol spike and the same fight or flight and all that stuff. So Zach's one was that his parents and his family, they moved really frequently. Like, he's basically like
constantly having to reinvent himself.
And mine was, I mean, I'm not going to get into it, but, you know, not cool. And so because like before we had Remy, like we had a lot of conversations, like we planned it, we were sure what we wanted, and I needed my mental health to be stable. Like there was a lot of things that we needed to tick off before we even started trying for kids. And so one of the things that that was really important for me was that there has to be like not built-in trauma, but there has to be like some acceptable trauma that we let happen to Remy. And I'm not talking getting kidnapped by a stranger. You know what I mean? Like I'm talking about certain levels of adversity. Like he sometimes
like
he'll play
disappointment.
with his toy. Disappointment, yeah, disappointment's a good one. But you know, like struggles. You know, struggles that he has to figure out on his own, because the reality of trauma is that you're faced with a situation where you're feeling unsafe or something's really pissed you off, and you have to deal with it on your own. Right, so it builds character because you figured it out on your own, and then you get the result of having it figured out on your own, and then the satisfaction of like, hey, I'm actually capable of doing stuff on my own and stuff like that. And so for Remy, like oftentimes if he's like really struggling with a toy, and he gets really pissed off, all riled up, starts crying, and then I will literally I'd be like, I'll be there in 5 minutes, and then I actually just don't go in. And almost like 70% of the time, he's figured it out on his own, and then he's super happy, and he comes and tells me, "Mom, I did it on my own," and it's so stinking cute.
100%. Yeah. No, one of the comments I did hear is if you do everything for them, you steal their confidence and you steal their confidence. And I've explained, I've kind of said that to Connor on many occasions, because we are different with the way we grew up and everything like that. So one of the big things that we haven't yet decided on, but I've decided on, and whether or not I get my way, we'll see, is what age the kids go to work, when they start working. And
what age did you start?
14, 9 months, exactly when I could start.
I was 14. Yeah, what'd you do?
I got so much. Oh God, my first job. Well, first of all, I worked for my parents' business clipping files from a quite a young age. From my most boring job in the world. 5 cents. I think originally when I started, it was like 1 cent a file, and then it got up to 5 cents at one point. I had friends working with me at one point. Like we had a little sweatshop going on. Don't worry about that. I'm starting my own here in our company. And so, but my first job was a hairdressing assistant when I was 14 and 9 months. And it was tough. Like criticism you get to deal with difficult people. You've got to be so independent. You've got to handle yourself. There's so much stuff that's going on that you no longer have your security of your family around you or adults and stuff. And I think it's character building, and I truly believe my kids should do that. He doesn't believe that. He thinks that they should be kids until they're 18. I think that's when you're building confidence.
Sorry.
Yeah, no,
bad idea.
I'll send him this, and he'll be like,
yeah. Slow motion. No.
Yeah, no.
I think honestly, I'm the same. I think my first job was I think I taught French as private lessons. And then another one I got, like, my best friend and
you don't speak French now.
I do speak French.
Oh, do you? No, wait. Someone else doesn't speak French. All right, go.
I speak French. And me and my best friend, we used to go to Deepwater Bay. Anyway, they had a restaurant there, and so we would always go, and then we just like randomly were like, should we ask for a job and like get more money and stuff like that? And we both got a job, and there was a restaurant, and then there was a bar, and they separated us because clearly they saw that, you know, we were just fucking stir shit up. Yeah. So we each got a job, and I was a waitress, and he was like working at the bar, obviously not handling alcohol because he was also 14, but he was just doing like the juices and stuff like that. It was Hong Kong. It's so fucking loose. Nobody
would have been
cared.
fun.
And we loved it. And so during the summer, we would just both meet up in the morning, and then we would head to work together, and he'd go to the bar and I'd go to the restaurant, and then we'd meet up for smoke because yes, at 14 we were both smoking heavily, because why not?
I was 14, 9 months. I had my smoker at the back. I totally get, but I will say there was a lot of things that were going on during those work hours that were incredibly confronting and incredibly scary to think that my children would face any of that. I still remember I used to have a manager and it was a juice bar. I think I would have been anywhere between 17, 18, maybe in the juice bar, I think. I can't really remember. And the manager was 24, 25. And one shift I had with him, first of all, he was sexually harassing everyone. Then his girlfriend was the other manager. And so, but she did the whole, if he was sexually harassing you, then she hated you and, you got on bad shifts and stuff like that. So it was a real fun workplace. But I still remember one shift. It was probably a Friday afternoon. It's a very slow day. We had a massive ice cream maker out the back of the shop. He was just doing lines of coke off the top of the ice cream maker. And I just thought to myself, and he's like, do you want some? And I'm like, gonna pass, thanks.
Not today.
Little did I know. Not today. But yeah, so he's doing lines off the ice cream maker, and I just thought to myself, imagine if any of that gets into the actual, because there's quite a big hole where you
and a kid gets and orders a juice or something.
Exactly. And I was just like, that is crazy. And then it gets out which I think he did, not anyone else, but he went around telling everyone I had sex with him in the freezer. Did not happen. I freely admit to my encounters, and I can guarantee I never slept with that guy at all. And so his girlfriend then comes at me, and I was, 17, 18, and I was just like, this is nuts. And, you don't tell your parents any of that. So, there's a part of me that goes, so there's a part of me that goes, but again, builds character. Oh, the girlfriend had a severe heroin problem. And we used to go out for drinks on the Friday and Saturday nights with all the juice bar people. I remember I went back to her place one night. She invited a few people back, and she got high, shot up in her bedroom whilst we were all in the lounge room. And I'm just like, wow. But I will tell you this, I learned something. So, never going to do heroin. Not really my thing.
Fucking your innocence just snatched away from you.
Yeah, well,
then you were innocent. Come on, let's be real.
No, was not that innocent, I can tell you. But she did tell me, which I still remember, again, core memory, said to me, I said, what does it feel like when you shoot up heroin? And it's supposedly, and this is just a little tidbit from me to you, it feels like having an all-over body orgasm. She says that when she, would shoot up, she would wake up after it and be completely drenched down the bottom, from
orgasming,
and it feels like a full body orgasm. And I was like,
I reckon she should get a better boyfriend.
I don't know what I expected.
Who knows his way around instead of shooting up heroin. And really,
that poor girl,
do you know what's happened to her? She dead or something?
No idea, actually. Do you know what? I'm going to look that up. I'm going to find out. She has quite a unique name, so I'm going to find that out because that is interesting. But yeah, I still remember her telling me that and going, wow, it never really crossed my mind as to what that would feel like, but there you go.
Speaking of how to make sure that your kids don't do shit, the reason why I never did all the heroin and
drugs,
extreme drugs, because I did some drugs, but extreme drugs, is because I watched. He's like, my computer's like, how can I help you? I was like, I don't want drugs. Fuck off.
Drugs?
Drugs? Let me help you.
You want drugs? Why has your computer got that setting?
I watched
Requiem for a Dream.
Yes. Oh my god, that will traumatize you. Honestly.
No.
I'm considering, I told Zach, I was like, I think we might just show Remy that movie. He's a bit older.
Not fucking tomorrow.
No. But I'm talking I want to say what
age are we talking?
A good age, I would say probably 13, 14 is a good age.
Do you remember the scene at the end?
What?
The ass-to-ass scene?
No, I don't remember that one.
Oh, yeah, you're going to need to watch that movie.
No, I ain't watching that shit again.
Just watch the last 5 minutes of it, and you might
That
possibly
should
not show
traumatize me. He doesn't have to watch the whole thing. He just has to watch the downfall. It really concreted for me how no matter who you are, if you do heroin, that's the trajectory
That's
of
your
your life.
path.
Yeah.
I'm going to counteract that.
Okay.
With, I think it depends on your personality. You're either someone that can do something and stop, or you're someone that does something and wants to chase it all the time. I think
like,
you and
you've
I are
got to be
people that
different.
can do something and stop. I know other people that you would seemingly think were very similar in that sense, and couldn't. Now, there's obviously various reasons why people take harder drugs and stuff like that. But like, we have taken various things in our lives. We go, okay, we did it. That was X experience. We don't need to do it again. It was good, but I don't need to do it again. That kind of, we've got that ability. I think there's some people that just don't have that ability.
I have this thing about like not. I absolutely hate not being in control of my body. Like,
same.
You know, same. That's why I don't actually enjoy being drunk that much. Like I did, you know, when I was like heavy into the clubbing and drinking and stuff like that. But now, like, I absolutely hate it. Like, honestly, like, I want to say ever since Remy was born, the second I feel tipsy, I stop everything because I absolutely hate it. I hate it with a passion. And then I'll switch to water.
I got into Hong Kong. I used to take quite a lot of pride in the fact that I could get really drunk and I'd still remember everything that I did the night before. So it still felt somewhat I had control or some agency. I got to Hong Kong, I reckon 2 years in, I started not remembering the night before. And I hated that feeling. Like, I'm not joking you. It is the worst feeling I've ever experienced in my entire life to not remember what happened the night before. It's like,
scary,
how did I get
it?
into bed? How did I get into the cab? So that's when I stopped doing pretty much everything.
Do you know what happened to you?
I can't do this. Yeah.
I had this, well, I have to cut this bit out, but there was this one time, and like, I think that was a huge turning point for me, was I was in Lang Kwai, and I was drinking alone at a bar because I had some bad news, and somebody spiked my drink. Like, it just from a moment like that, I stopped remembering anything. Somehow, I ended up home. I ended up home, and then I had to get on a bus because I had to go meet a friend or something like that the next day. And I get a phone call on the bus, and I'm like, hello? And they're like, hi, it's Tim. And I'm like, who are you? And it's like, who? And they're like, Tim. I'm like, who? Tim. And we went on like a solid 3 minutes, and I was like, and he was like, we spent the entire night together. I was like, did we? What? So we supposedly had spent the entire night together, like, talking in the streets of Lang Kwai Fong, and he must have put me in a cab to go home, and I think he intercepted the person that spiked my drink, because this guy was genuinely a nice guy.
Spiked your drink? No,
he wasn't, because why would the guy who spiked my drink call me the next day? Make sure I got home all right.
Men are fucked. I don't know.
I don't know. No, but I don't know. Something told me like he wasn't the one, and I genuinely like thought, oh my god, like this person who intercepted like fucking saved me. And so years ago, like, I was already living in New Zealand, and I don't know why it just kept coming back into my head, and I was like, my karma owes this guy a thank you. And so I messaged, because he ended up finding me on Facebook and adding me on Facebook and stuff like that. And he was like, you don't remember me like at all? Like, he was genuinely surprised. You know what I mean? Like, everything about our communication just said that he didn't understand why the hell I didn't remember him at all. And so I messaged him, and I was like, you don't know this, but I think that the reason why I didn't remember you is because I was actually drugged, and I think that you saved me from being raped. And then the guy was like, oh, I've never. And he was like, well, thank you for messaging and like saying that so nice and stuff. And
what an odd message to get, but yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I just, it was like, it was eating at me that I hadn't thanked this guy, you know? Like, and he might not have known that he was doing a good deed, but he genuinely, like, I think changed a huge thing. Like, you know, sometimes like you think that the course of your life, you know, that point.
I definitely know. I reckon I've got some of those instances, that I I could envision, like, I got
life
locked in a
completely
man's
different.
house at one point, with him chasing me around his apartment, and thankfully I got out. Like, there's just so many.
What?
It's a similar story to you, but mine ended up the predator. And there was an old guy. When I say old, he was probably in his 30s, and I was 18, I think. And we were at a very young club, so it wasn't as if he should have been there. But he invites me up to his apartment. Shouldn't have gone. I'm an idiot. Shit happens. Which was next door to the club, to see his car or something like that. I can't remember what it was. And yeah, he locked me in his house. And then finally, I had to get out of there and run out of there, and I did. And I got the front door open and bolted. And worse still, I called my sister. I said, "You got to get me a cab out of here. Someone just tried to rape me." And, I was caught in an apartment, and he wouldn't let me out and all this kind of stuff. And then I just kind of hung up on it.
What
It's just like, what?
Did you go back to the club or something?
No, I went home. But it was so funny. My mum and my sister, so my sister told my mum, and I got home, and my mum and my sister were like, "You need to ask her what happened. You need to see what happened. Something bad happened." Thankfully, no, nothing bad happened. It was just, obviously slightly traumatic. And yeah, I mean, again, do we want our kids going through all this?
No. Like, this story I just told you was probably like the dodgiest. And I think it was a huge turning point in my life where I was like, I can't put myself in a position like that anymore. And so that's when I actually started tapering off, because I didn't cook turkey. Tapering off, doing stupid shit.
Didn't wanted a little bit of element of risk to my life.
Yeah.
No,
but that genuinely scares me. But I think that's more likely to happen in a city like Hong Kong, because it's almost like a rite of passage to have your years in Lang Kwai and Wan Chai and doing all that stuff, isn't it? If you grew up in Hong Kong, it's a rite of passage. Everybody does it. Like, whether you're a party person or not, you will have your time there.
And I do think there's an element to me that believes Hong Kong is an incredibly safe city. Many, many years ago, a lot safer than, say, going out for a night out in Australia, to be honest. There's been a lot more situations, I've gotten into in Australia than I ever did Hong Kong, but I was a lot older. So, I mean, I look at that and say, my kids, this might be not a bad place for the kids to be teenagers. But the only thing that I will work on in terms of that whole scenario, because I agree, they're going to do it. I don't think there's going to be any issues there. I just want to work on the relationship with me and them, that they feel comfortable to come to me with any issue that they face. Yeah. If I could get that relationship right, then yeah, they're going to face some pretty dodgy things out there, because that is life. But I just want to be there to help them to navigate that as best as possible, whatever it may be. That is the relationship that I want to try and build with them as much as humanly possible. Yeah, how does that look? I don't know. Yeah, and how do I do that? I think if anyone had that secret, they would tell. But that's the one thing I'm most important about. I'm not going to concentrate on, don't do this, don't do that. Oh my God, stop doing that. No, you can't do that. I want to be, okay, if you do that, let me know how it goes. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what you face. Like, I know it sounds a bit wishy-washy, but it's the only thing that I think is going to be to allow me to have any kind of remote control, any kind of control over those situations.
I have a little one for you. What I've started doing lately is, like, I'll have big reactions only before he does something. And then once that thing has happened, then I no longer have a big reaction. Like, he'll go and do something, like he pulls our bathroom drawer open and the whole thing collapses. And so, I heard that and I was like, hey, are you okay? And he comes out and he's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I was like, ooh, it's not that bad. Are you okay? So I was like, did you get a boo-boo? And he was like, yes. And I was like, where is it? Gave him a magic kiss. And then I was like, okay, so what were you doing? Like, why did you go in there? And it turns out that he went in there because he saw that I had a boo-boo and he was trying to get the Lay Labs cream out. And he pulled the thing too too far in. And then I immediately was like, oh my God, that's so cute. So like once the thing has happened and you've assessed that it's not like a huge deal, like nobody's hurt himself, nobody's lost a limb, to have like a calm reaction and then talk through it. And then so far, like he's really reacted well to that. You know what I mean? Like once the danger is out of the way, then like there's no point of having a big reaction at that point.
Yeah. And look, I've got to work on that because right now, Evie is pushing every goddamn button she possibly can with.
I think you have a different case here than me. Not comparable, look, I don't think.
No, she's had a lot of change in her life in the last month, so that I do think that's a big point of it. But yeah, so I just gotta like zen myself somehow because the types of things she's doing. We talked about this. What I feel like is she's revenge peeing. So I'm literally walking through urine constantly at the moment. My feet are very sanitized, but they're very smelly with urine. So I'm currently sitting on a seat she peed on yesterday or the day before. And I can smell it. I can smell the urine. I gotta wet back it. But yeah, so it's so hard because I know she's doing it on purpose. I know a lot of people are going to be like, no, she's not. No. A lot of what she's doing is on purpose in terms of not wanting to go to the toilet, all this kind of stuff. And so it's so frequent at the moment that I'm just like, stepping in an unusual puddle in your house is just so discerning. Especially when you got dogs and kids and you're kind of like, whose was that? I don't know.
And then you got to go close and smell it and be able to tell the difference.
Yeah. And you can't tell the difference. It all smells like pee.
Really?
Oh yeah. None of it. It all smells like pee. To be fair, it's mostly Evie's pee, so the dogs aren't too bad. But yeah, so I've got to I've got to be better at giving myself a minute before I react. That is just not something that I'm doing very well at the moment.
I saw something I sent you, and I don't know if it's going to help you, but I did, until I actually read it. Did you see it? I didn't realize that I've been doing it for a few days. Like when he starts to raise his voice and get like really agitated about something, I immediately go down to his level and start like just barely over a whisper in volume.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, and he immediately calms down because he's like, why are you whispering? And then he's like, he's got to quiet down so he can understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No, it actually I'm really
going to give it a go.
Yeah, try it.
Because we've got a lot of screaming in this house at the moment. Last night at 3:00, kicked me in the ribs. Oof. I want daddy. And I'm like, cool, go back to sleep.
Oh.
I know. My empathy is very low at the moment.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I've realized like a lot of not that it justifies my parents' actions or inaction or lack of action or anything like that, but
any sense of the word, yeah.
No, they're still shit parents. Though they were shit parents. One of them is okay now. One of them, I don't know, alive, dead, I'm not sure.
Disappeared in the world, yeah.
But it's very eye-opening having children and going through all the different stages and then realizing that you probably were also a little shit and put your parents through hell. And you know what? Kudos. I'm still alive, which means they didn't kill me.
I 100%.
Props.
There is many a time in the last probably couple of months where I've gone, ooh, okay, Mum at some point, was on top of stuff because yes, I am still alive. And also, there's a lot of shit that wasn't good, but I assume that during this toddler period, I was a complete asshole. And that's tough to get through. And it weighs on you and it's, a lot.